Before we get started, I've got copies of. I was hustling from Lansing to get back here, and I was having. All this annexation and zoning committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I'm Doug Hainham, I'm the chair, I'm here obviously. Marcus Hanson, Lindsay Stow, Mary Westfall, also members of the committee are here. We have the other remaining members of council here and the mayor and as well. So the purpose of this meeting is to talk about potential change in the zoning code for our downtown central business district. And we had, as you know, we did a downtown plan a few years ago. Coming out of that, we had Michelle prepare for us some recommendations. And honestly, what happened with them is kind of looked at them. When I say we, I mean both the administration and me, looked at them and kind of decided, and we weren't real enthused about changes. But there are some things, but this group of council members really hasn't discussed it at any great length. So purpose of tonight's meeting is to begin the discussion and see how much more we want to pursue this. Leslie and I talked about this. I've talked about this on a couple of different occasions. Most recently this afternoon from my car while I was charging it. So anyway, Leslie, you want to just kind of kick this off like we discussed?
Yep, I sure will. Thank you, Mr. Hainham. This has been kind of an ongoing process that we started, nearly 5 years ago. That's when we first started working with Michelle Johnson and doing the downtown master plan. And as a result of that and those discussions, she recommended, we had some meetings and some issues were highlighted in those meetings that we thought were worth taking a look at and potentially including in the B3 zoning code. So that's when she started revising the code, and she provides several drafts to Joe and Eric, and Tim and I met at least 3 or 4 times. And some of the issues in the zoning code just aren't how our process works. So some of it was just getting that lined up with her understanding of how our process works. For instance, we don't issue building permits. So just kind of working through those issues. The last iteration that we really looked at was the one that I sent out to you guys. It was from 2025, and I think we got to the point where some of the color schemes and things were included, and that's where, from an administrative standpoint, I think that's what we need council's input on. I don't know if you guys like that, if you don't like that, so I think that's worth having a discussion about. Well, it's all worth having a discussion about, but that was, I know, from an administrative perspective, I mean, I don't, neither here nor there to us, if you guys like that, like having that, that type of guidance in the zoning code, or we could also just have it as kind of a policy and handle that administratively. When people come in for Board of Architectural Review, we could say, like, this is what we're looking for. And that's where those discussions are had now. It's not like those discussions aren't being held, they're just held at the BAR level. So that's kind of where we are, and you know, there's lots in here. So I think, you know, I can talk about things from a legal perspective, and Joe can talk about things from the public service and zoning perspective if you'd like, but we're, you know, just, I think, really here to have a discussion. And then Michelle Johnson is, we do still have one meeting with her under our contract. So Doug and I were talking this afternoon. I think maybe after we have this initial discussion, we can get your comments back to her and then maybe get her involved again and work out another draft, and we can go from there. That was kind of the thought process.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. She's recommended a lot of different things. I guess Leslie put it to me like this. What we have is works pretty well, and allows us to meet with developers and accommodate them within the code, with the backstop of a PD if there's something that we need to do differently. And she and I both like that process. We feel comfortable that council is, the good thing about the PD is it forces the developer to tell us in pretty great detail what they plan to do. And we have an opportunity at an early stage to impact that, that plan. When I say we, I'm talking about administration primarily. Obviously, the PD ultimately has to be approved by council, but at the front end stage, Joe and Tim, Leslie, get to look at this and say, how does this fit into our community? And does it, they can always go forward and bring it to council, they bring anything. They can apply and bring anything to council, but this process has worked pretty well. So that's part of the, there's a little bit of the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it aspect of this. There are a number of things that we've talked about in the downtown business district over the years. At one point, we had a couple council members who were very adamant that we needed to change the downtown business to the zoning to require any future development to have first floor retail development. And it was a focus on retail. And one of the concerns was that the businesses on Main Street were like dead spaces for the community, even though they were, in many cases, vibrant, functioning businesses with, that brought people downtown to work here. There was some thought that, going forward, we didn't we didn't want a law office on the first floor of a building in the downtown area. Well, we kind of, for a variety, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which was we didn't feel that there was a sufficient market for all those buildings for retail. So we talked about it, but it kind of went away. So I guess what I wanted to accomplish today was not, I mean, we can talk about the Smith Group recommendations, but I think get a little more sense from council of what you think we need to do in the downtown business area. And Leslie, I think it's worthwhile reminding everybody what the downtown zoning area is, because it's not just Main Street.
Right. Shoot, let me see if I have it's generally, I have the, let's see. 45 feet. It goes over to Summit.
Right.
Up, so let's start Monroe and Main and Monroe, go over to Summit, up Summit, over to Erie, then down Main.
Actually, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, it goes over to the railroad tracks, you're right, because Josh Cooper's house is B3.
And then all the way up the railroad tracks, all the way back up to this.
Yes, yep.
Summit
So-
and Maine.
Summit,
Both
Are in it.
okay.
yep,
Both sides, so,
correct,
Right, Abe?
yep.
And Summit obviously has a lot of residences on
Yeah,
it
they do.
presently,
Mhm.
at present. And, you know, the downtown business plan suggested that area was particularly ripe for redevelopment. Which we have. I mean, the best thing about the downtown business plan is not the dream of what it is, but if you look at the demographics and the economic information, I mean, there's a lot of potential in the downtown area that, I don't want to say it isn't being realized, but it hasn't been detected or evaluated by the market in the same way that the numbers would suggest it should be. You know, investors haven't decided that downtown Sylvania is hot. That's just not what we're seeing. So, the other part about when we talked about the retail, that might make sense for one section of Main Street, but not for the entirety of the B3. Anyway, I don't need to talk about this. I mean, what I'm really interested, I know Sean, you have some thoughts about this, and Lindsay, I know you do as well, and it probably makes sense for us to.
No, go ahead.
No, my biggest thing was I just wanted us to be having that discussion, just because of the fact that we've invested so much into getting things heading in the right direction, that I just thought it was very important that it's back on our radar to have those conversations. I think Doug or Mr. Hayden, as you had said, that the addressing the questions of why are some investors not as piqued their interest, not especially when they can see some of the infrastructure that's going into that space. If there needs to be something, when I say something, I don't mean an incentive, but I mean strictly marketing discussions, reinvigorating discussions with folks to say, hey, you know, this is already zoned for B3. I think originally when I started asking some of the questions about it, I didn't realize how much was already zoned for B3. So it was interesting after I brought it up, I think originally to you, then I'm looking like, oh, it's already there. So that just led more to the conversations of if we already have it zoned appropriately for that, then why don't we see more activity in that? I do think it'd be interesting to have some talks about the design. I think I'd be interested to hear from administration, Joe, yourself as well too. Some of her, Michelle's design ideas, what you think the pros and cons are of them. And I can imagine some of this because they might be too constrictive, right? But then where do you draw the line between too constrictive and no cohesiveness? Where do you strike that balance? We've had some discussions too, just in general about some of the places that are in B3, but currently are not in B3 the way they're currently operating. Taking a look at those properties, opportunities, if not necessarily for the city, at least for a developer to free market, take a look at that. And then I'll leave it at that because I just said a lot.
Do you want to talk about any of those things first?
I think you made some good points there, Sean, and I appreciate that. I do think that one of the reasons we don't see a ton of development interest is because we don't have a ton of property that's available. But I do think, as we know, recently there's been some properties that have become available, and there has been interest. So again, being landlocked, having a small downtown, that in and of itself creates some limitations for developers being interested. So I think that additionally, at this moment in history, the updates to the downtown footprint are probably causing a moment of pause. People want to
Absolutely.
So I feel like there is interest when it's
I,
No, to your point, Mrs. Westphal, I think you're right. There were some more substantial properties just put on the market, and they were on the market and sold within 3 weeks, if I recall the timing. Took about 3 weeks. So there's interest when there's a material property, but the total footprint we're talking about here is what, Joe, maybe less than 10 acres?
Maybe a little more than that.
Okay, so 15 maybe?
Okay.
So there's not that much and a good chunk of it's street. So there's not that much property that's actually even theoretically available for us to look at in this. And much of it, as Mr. Hanem properly points out, they're currently residential homes going up both sides of Summit for a good chunk of that distance. So, so there's a bit, and that is a challenge associated with footprint, no doubt about it. One thing that, if I may, Mr. Hanem,
Sure.
one thing that I wanted to mention for you to consider is the balance of the opportunity to shape the project and speed. And if things really do start to pick up steam and there is lots of incremental interest, does council want to have a situation where by providing these guidelines that it's more functional at an administrative level, or does that conversation in your minds still need to come back to council? And I'm not sure, the administration really doesn't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I do like the PD structure bluntly, because we do have control, but I do get concerned that when we have a developer who wants to move quickly, we may not be able to move quickly enough. That would be my only concern, because of the nature of the process that we need to go through.
Okay, I've only been doing this for 23 years.
I know.
Okay, so, the stuff that has been built and approved during my time doing this is stuff that I'm pretty happy with the way Somo came out and that whole development, how that went down. And that was all, put together with administration and council and developer. And, watching that process didn't happen overnight.
Understood.
But what we have is something that's gonna be there for a long time that we're comfortable with.
Right.
So I understand the, developers are always in a hurry. Whether they're building condos or commercial buildings, they're always in, once they decide they're going, they wanna go tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm not sure, no, I am sure. I don't think sacrificing quality for expediency is a good deal. So the issue is, if we're gonna develop if you develop standards, you're kind of prejudging what people are gonna wanna put up and see if you can shoehorn it into those standards when you get it, or else you're doing variance anyway. I don't know, if we had my sense is that our administrative staff is pretty available and pretty flexible, and, if somebody wants to get a hold of them, we're a pretty responsive little city. But I don't know, I understand what you're saying, and I understand there's a degree of, when you have standards in the code, you can look at the code and you can say, okay, I can do this. I can do it this way, do it that way, and maybe shortcut some of that upfront meeting with the administration people. I'm not a design guy, so somebody is going to have to tell me what works and what's going to look good, and I'm a little. I'm an Adam Smith economist at heart, and I'm kind of pretty comfortable with the market dealing with this, and
Sure.
and us dealing with it in due course.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. I'm bringing that up so so you and other members of council can have,
Yeah.
where's that balance? Is the balance where it needs to be today? Does it need to be adjusted? I guess is the reason I just mentioned that in that structure. I'm comfortable with the current situation, but I've also heard from other external entities
Yeah.
that we did, in certain circumstances, we did not move fast enough. And that's the challenge associated. Where is the appropriate balance for that? And that's for you all. We obviously can have input, and I think we do a pretty good job, but you all need to make that decision.
So I guess I have a question about the master plan in general.
Yep.
It's from 2021, so it's been 5 years already.
Yep.
We have a new.
Don't expect me to remember any specific details, Mr.
We have a new service director, we have a new mayor.
Yep.
Is this still the vision? And how realistic is it to obtain that? I agree with Mrs. Westfall, as properties become available, there's going to be interest. I agree with Mr. Hanum on just the market driving that. But is this from already 5 years ago, is this a 30-year master plan?
Well, let's look back. Let's remember what the plan was. Okay. The primary function of the plan was an economic study and a study of the community and what was available. And while there was a lot of other stuff in it, it was not a vision for the development of Sylvania, downtown Sylvania. It was a vision of things that could be done if the marketplace felt that it was possible. In other words, we didn't say, the famous one was, we're going to redo Sodders. Okay, we should redo that grocery store into a more modern kind of multi-purpose grocery store with eating and dining and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think Jim and his son are interested in that, and we're not going to dictate that to anybody. So, it was an interesting vision of what could be done, but I've also known Jim for longer than 23 years, and I don't think that was his vision for what that market is, or his sons, who played baseball with my son, so.
And I,
Lots of big dreams of what
Yeah.
could be happening here, but again, it's about having the private development interest. So,
Yeah, we did, it was very clear we were not gonna set out and start acquiring properties and building things
Right.
and doing all that. It was just, this was Michelle's, and the Smith Group, Michelle was obviously a significant part of it, but it's sort of, this is what could happen here. And the demographics support, you know, a lot more downtown residential, a lot more, you know, high-end kind of residential. You know, Somo is proving that, you know, I mean, there's a market out there. I mean, there are, when you look around Northwest Ohio, there's a lot of downtown residential development, new development that's going on, you know, even in the city of Toledo, you know. It's really interesting when you start looking.
everybody wants a walkable space now.
Yeah.
To your thought process, Mr. Hanson, I think there are things that are clearly aspirational, and those are the words that I would use. And I would question whether moving Sauter's 200 feet forward and putting the parking lot in the back and adding the second floor will pencil out economically, and I'm sure Mr. Sauter would probably agree with me in that regard.
He's not gonna need a parking.
But there are other pieces that were also part of this that were aspirational, such as what to do with this facility, and that's one of the things that we've contracted recently to get a vision on what does this space need to be in the future, and how could we best utilize that space, all those kinds of things. So there are pieces of it that I think have evolved from that. One of them is redoing our downtown 2 blocks on Main Street. That was part of that conversation that we had, and enhancing that space, and that's come about. Some of the things will never come about, and the question then becomes, is 5 years, should we refresh it, right? And I don't know that we've had enough time pass, and I don't want to pre-run anything until we see what happens, in my mind, until we have the second block finished, and give that a little bit of time to percolate.
And the demographics of the area has done nothing but improved in
Yeah.
terms of the economic purchasing ability of the Sylvania community, in terms of interest in being downtown, in a downtown area in a community. I mean, our downtown is shockingly healthy for as small as it is, you know. COVID was tough on some business owners. The redevelopment was tough on some of those business owners, and I'm sure we've heard some of that. But I guess the issue is, you know, how much do we want to change the current situation to provide greater certainty to a developer going forward?
So, Mr. Haynem, not to, redirect, but I would like to hear what Mrs. Dow had to say,
Me
if
too.
you don't mind.
Oh,
I was
great.
gonna ask her.
I wanted to hear what everyone wanted to say too, so I wouldn't repeat anything. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really great point that Main Street is different from all of B3. Though I think something that was brought up in the recommendations of not by right allowing single-family homes to be rebuilt in the same area might be worth considering if the general direction's going in one way. But it's true, the market does seem to determine a lot of things, and I think there's something to be said about us not being overly in the way of some of those changes that might want to happen, but also still being able to retain control. I mean, reading through this, I have comments on some of the different sections that I'd love to talk more about at some point. But I think talking more generally about things, the current way of having the PD, and you mentioned Selmo specifically, I get a little nervous about that because I don't want there to start to be spot zoning. And if we look at the zoning that was made just for Selmo, it has very different rules involved in it than our downtown. An easy one to call out for that is our downtown area. You have to have a residential unit that's at least 750 square feet, and you're limited to 20 units per acre, whereas for Somo, I think it's 500 square feet. I confirmed it recently. It was like 500 square feet was the minimum for a unit, and then the density was like 52 units per acre. And there's something I get a little nervous of going the PD route as sort of that baseline if things don't kind of seem to jive at the base level. One, I think we should have a pretty clear base level so that hopefully, unless if someone has a really cool idea, they would be able to move forward. So I think there is something about looking at what our baseline is to make sure we're still on the same page of it. And then of course PD is always on the back burner for when we need that extra control. But I think there's also something about having the consistency there too. I think in time it could cause challenges if one developer comes in and, I don't know, happens to pitch in a certain way or to a certain group or at a certain time where they were able to get better stats than maybe another one, and then it starts to become an inconsistency. I mean, it's not like we said, it was about 10 acres or so. It's not a large area. So to rely on PDs for such a small area seems, I don't know, seems a bit conflicting in my mind. Especially when, if we want that added control, that's always there as the backup path. So that's just a thought that goes on in my mind about this. I think the thought about Main Street versus the rest of B3 is also worth considering through this, that I don't think the report from Smith Group gets fine-grained enough on that. And then speed versus quantity. I mean, I geek out about these things and I read about urban design, going on all over the states. And there's a lot of spots where if a developer sees they're gonna have to go through a special use permit, they automatically just move on to another project because they know that the time that costs and the doors that opens is too much of an open end when there are other opportunities they could be taking. Not that we need to cater to all developers. Taking a little bit of the background I have of, when I was making my architecture history tour, one of the interesting things about that is the reason we have one block of downtown is because around that time, turn of the century, it meant we had about 1,000 residents or so. And whenever you go to any historic downtown like that, depending on how many blocks they have, you can pretty much estimate about how many residents were nearby. And at that time, you didn't have zoning codes and you didn't have Board of Architectural Reviews. And part of it is because everyone was very aware that when you're reliant only on walking and you didn't have cars yet, that working together as a collective group to make every step count made a big difference. So they automatically would make the aesthetics of their, this was a part of my presentation, they would already make it so that all the buildings would tie together. But this was also before national brands, where a company's brand was more important and in fact higher priority than trying to blend in with everyone else, because now everyone wants to stand out. So that's a long-winded way of me saying I think it's worth considering us having a preferred design direction as a baseline to make it easier for those who don't have a specific vision and don't want to take the extra time to go through PD. I think it's worth looking at whether it's the existing setup of our code and making tweaks to it, or doing a bigger revision like what was recommended on the back. I think making sure we're all on the same page of what is our collective feeling on the long-term best interests of downtown when it comes to the density and the size and the design of it. I think there's some really good things in the report. I was comparing it to the existing. I think there's some things that lose out on it, of like the new one, it just kind of says residential goes to the residential section, so then that whole density question just gets lost when it comes to the fact that SOMO is different than downtown, even though we're right next door, and very similar uses. But I'm not comfortable yet kind of stopping this process. I think a lot of big things could be happening soon. I think it would, I don't like more laws where laws aren't necessary, but I also don't want to be caught off guard. So single family homes, I think, is a question worth talking about. Density, I think, is worth talking about. The baseline design standards, and hey, here, if you have other ideas, here's the process you would go to, making it as clear and as approachable as possible. And I was interested in the fact that at the back of the summary, and I think the report itself, she had other recommendations of, you know, it had been cleared that our zoning section hadn't been, you know, fully updated in probably over 10 years, and then that our actual overall comprehensive plan hasn't been done in 10 years. And
It's
I'm
been longer than
wondering,
that.
yeah, so I'm wondering
A
if,
lot longer than that.
I agree.
as we're talking about the potential of another master plan, or we're talking about updating this zoning code, is it maybe, instead of us once again kind of spot treating, and we're only taking care of this zoning code of this area, whether it's worth maybe taking a step back and looking at the bigger code and lining ourselves up. But I think the mayor has a great point in that a huge change just happened down there. And maybe the few years you're talking about of kind of seeing how things settle out there, that could be a good time to start doing a bigger study that could then lead in, of the comprehensive plan, that then could lead into an updated master plan or something. So a lot of ideas, a lot of interesting things.
Okay, well, one thing that's come up a couple times now is this prohibition of new single-family development in the business district. I gotta admit, I mean, I don't have a vision for this business district zoning thing. I'm not there. I understand, but I can understand, you know, that little piece of it, you know, maybe that does make some sense. I think even when you look at the plan, the kind of residential structures that were talked about were townhouses and, you know, really not single family, individual standalone residences. That kind of makes some sense to me. I don't know. You know, that might be something that we can continue to talk about this. But you all know when I have an idea about where I want to go with something, I can do that. And I do not have an idea about where to go with this. I really don't.
I know
And
we're
Lindsay,
running.
I think you have a unique perspective, you know, as an architect and as somebody who's been more involved in our downtown. So, you know, I love to be in charge and the leader, but I might not be the one to be in charge and the leader on this, because I don't have a vision for this. And you know, I said it 3 or 4 times. The thing, when I read the downtown business plan, the only thing that got my juices flowing was getting my arms around the demographics and what that meant. And what that said to me is, we're not gonna hide this very long, okay? Because the economics will drive that redevelopment, and because that's how I think. You know, much more so than, I'm not a central planner, so.
I know we've got, we're bumping into our time. I would love to just, if we could have a few minutes to hear what Joe has to say. I'd love your thoughts and if you've got a perspective on this.
Sure. You know, for me, anytime development happens in town, it's zoning and permitted use. So if I was you guys and I was really interested in making sure you kind of have a vision of where you're gonna go with it, I would go through the B code and I would look at your permitted uses and see what's in there or what could be red flags that you think, hey, do I really want this or not? That's always the driver point. Anytime this goes for anywhere in the city, that's always the case. So spend time with permitted uses and see if anything in there draws you red flags. That's like the basis of the code, the wide spot of the cone. And then our downtown regulations that we have, our design guidelines, that kind of starts to narrow the cone a little bit with different things that document already wants to see happen in the downtown core that's in there. So for me, like Doug said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think that's a good chunk true, maybe not completely true, but I would spend time with permitted uses, see where that is. For me, 14 years or 13 years in doing this, there's nothing in there that really caused me a lot of harm or anything that caused me a lot of indigestion. And then once those development ideas come, you've got your board of architectural review standing in the background looking at character and defining that. And they're also referring on those downtown guidelines as well. So I think there's a lot of cone shape to it already. What was drafted that I really wasn't a part of except coming in at the end and taking a look at it seemed to be jumping way to the very tip of the cone. And that to me was a little problematic because you've got this beautiful footprint that we're getting ready to unleash. You've got redevelopment that's going to be on the core. I think Leslie and I can both agree that the most ideas of redeveloping that part of our downtown has happened in the last 6 months, maybe 8 months that we've heard since my time here. So it's happening, but I'm a little concerned that, you know, if passed like as it was, it's very, very specific. And I think that's tough when you've got such a cool canvas to have. I think it's good to have guidelines, and I think the B3 has that. I think our downtown guidelines add a little layer to that. But getting super, super specific towards the tip to me gives me pause. And so I think that's how I looked at it when I looked at it the first time.
Okay, so I know we're over. What is our next step?
I think maybe Mr. Shaw just outlined it, and maybe we have committee members, and if other council members would be willing, have them participate in going through the B code, looking at the permitted uses and see if there's anything that concerns them and have that conversation.
Interesting, and Michelle recommended we remove them.
She did, I know. And she also, one of her recommendations was to allow bed and breakfast as a permitted use, which right now is only a special use. So there are some recommendations that were pretty, pretty radical in my opinion.
Very outside our anticipating.
Mhm.
So Joe's idea about looking at the uses and Michelle's idea is take them out. So those are really different visions.
Yep.
I guess what I don't know is, do we have people proposing to do things downtown that are currently not in our permitted uses?
We have an idea that was floated that caused us to take a look at a very specific section of our code.
Okay,
And I think Leslie and Eric and I have been looking specifically like outdoor activities, for example. So if somebody comes in and they want to do, something outdoorish, what does that look like in that footprint with a mix of residential around you? So we started to have conversations specifically on that, like, okay, our code is a little unique with that. Let's revisit that and see what kind of shape that looks like. So I think when development ideas come, it's like, okay, maybe we should take a look at that specifically rather than start all the way at the tip of the cone and say, well, no. So I think that was kind of where it is. So we've had a couple that come through and cause us to look at the code in other sections. So maybe create a new special use. Those are things that we look at.
Maybe it would be worth having Michelle talk with us, and I mean, maybe part of the challenge with this was the scope of the project. Instead of having her rewrite the whole or maybe not even rewrite, but change the whole setup of the zoning part of it. Maybe it is working with what the existing is and finding those key pieces that make sure we're not preemptively closing doors, or I guess maybe prohibitively closing something sooner, but not needing to do a big revamp like this one is having. Like I'm the performance guarantees, I'm a little surprised by that one. I mean, some of the colors are a little surprising, and then I'm pretty sure I was the person that brought up the dark sky friendly part of it, but I had no idea it would lead into 6 pages of something, and it's just, that's pretty clearly not really something that seems fitting for a downtown zone, right? So if we start taking away the parts that already are pretty clearly not quite us, what are the gems that are left over? And then making sure we feel like we have a full picture of it at that point to, feel comfortable.
Mrs. Westfall, I'll add, like, this is the 4th iteration of administration going back and forth with Michelle on it. So I think we've done a lot of trying to find a niche for this if this code was gonna move forward. So I know administratively, we've worked a lot on this. And like I said, I think to Doug's point, I think the 2 visions are maybe just a little different. I think she sees it super specific, and I like the cone to be a little wide, but, controlled at the entrance of it, and then narrow down to specific as you go, so.
Well, what I hear is that we're all struggling with what the next steps are. So I think, Mr. Hanem, you made a great point in that, sometimes there's not a need to make change. It's working. So I'm not suggesting that we should stop. I think that we do need to understand it a little bit more. I think that why.
I think it would be okay, maybe the next step, let's schedule another zoning and annexation committee meeting to go section by section through Michelle's recommendations and compare that to our existing code. Maybe do a real work session. So the everybody can read code. Some of us do better than others. It might be worthwhile to just have that discussion and see where we want to go. And before we invite Michelle back, I think we maybe never hurts to be smarter, right? So that might be worthwhile.
Given how much the administration's already worked on it, would it make sense to have them maybe make a proposal of the things that seem to make, that we consider at that meeting? I mean, as just like a starting point.
Talk to Michelle at length about our comments and thoughts, and we're kind of at an impasse.
I
Which
meant
is
not
why-
with Michelle, I meant of this whole idea of we're taking our code and we're putting in the pieces that
Oh, okay,
make
yeah,
the
yeah,
most
yeah, yeah,
sense.
yes,
that
okay,
if you guys had
Yes,
a
I'd be
sort of
happy to
here
do
are the
that,
things
right.
that, here's a starting
Right.
point.
That's much better.
yes.
Just to doc
Yes.
compare,
Yes.
straight up.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Cause then
I
that'll
will need
save
a
everyone trying to
bit
learn
of
how to
time.
read code and
Yes.
compare the two,
Cause
which,
that's 10 minutes worth of work for Leslie, probably, cause you have this in one Word document on both sides.
Yes.
Maybe not even 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
And we'll send that out,
start with the
and
recommendations.
Mr. Hanem, whenever you're ready, I mean, this isn't run down the hill time, I don't think. Let's take this at a reasonable pace, but no reason to get rushing either.
So the plan is that administration will prepare a comparison of the existing code with the Smith Group proposals. And then we can reconvene and discuss that.
Okay.
That's a good path, that's a path forward, and I wasn't sure what that was.
Great.
So,
We'll take
okay, good, so, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn
So
the
moved.
committee.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
take a 3-minute break then. And we'll start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 1st, 2026 council meeting for the city of Sylvania. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Hanem.
Here.
Mr. McCann.
Here.
Mr. Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Richardson.
Here.
Ms. Stowe.
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
All 7 members of city council are in attendance, therefore a quorum does exist. Move on to the Pledge of Allegiance this evening, led by Mr. Haynes. If you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Additions to the agenda, I don't have anything. Mrs. Westfall?
Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Members of council? Hearing none. Mr. Shaw?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Miller?
Nothing, Mr.
Mrs. Smith?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Briney?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
May I therefore have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the meeting minutes for consideration for the council meeting of May 18th, 2026. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the Sylvania City Council meeting minutes for the meeting held May 18th, 2026 as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the council meeting minutes for May 18th, 2026 as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the report for the Annexation and Zoning Committee meeting held this evening. Mr. Hanem,
Thank
you
you.
look
Mr.
like you're
Chairman.
still scribbling. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Annexation Zoning Committee met this evening at 6 o'clock. All members of the council were present and participated along with the mayor. Mr. Shaw also participated extensively. We reviewed the history of the Smith Group proposal to amend our Central Business District Downtown Zoning Code, and then had actually kind of a free-for-all discussion about what we wanted in terms of regulation of our downtown business district. And we talked about a lot of different things, including design standards and colors, and we talked about issues with new single-family development in the area. We talked about interest in some degree of consistency in what is a relatively small 10-acre area of our city, and a lot of other things. But what we came away with was a recommendation to go forward, that we would ask administration to prepare a comparison of our existing code with the Smith Group proposal, and we would reconvene and discuss this in greater detail. What was pretty clear from the meeting is that the way the current zoning code is written seems to be meeting our current needs pretty well, and the issue is whether there are things that we can do to improve that and provide greater certainty to developers going forward. It's noted that our downtown has a lot of potential. The previous downtown study proved that the demographics support a lot of different potential development in our downtown. And I think what we're wrestling with is how to best provide developers with a roadmap to doing that development and coming forward to meet with us to discuss that. So we clearly do not have a clear vision of what we want to do here. We're not even, I think, universally clear that we need to do anything. But what we agreed to do is to meet on it again and try and get into the nitty-gritty a little bit more of the actual regulations. So with that, 49 minutes of discussion. We adjourned the meeting at 6:49.
Thank you, Mr. Hanem. Any questions or comments from members of council? Hearing none, appreciate the report. Moving on to agenda item number 6, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, good evening, members of council. In front of you tonight is nuisance abatement lien authorization for a property on Balfour Road. Before I begin, I must commend council on giving us this tool in the toolbox to help us with our problematic locations. The nuisance abatement code that was prepared last year has been really helpful. This particular house, A&J Landscaping, hauled away 40 yards of material. For those that aren't really sure how big 40 yards is, if you're building a brand new home and you see one of those large construction dumpsters sitting out in front of it, that's the amount that was put into it. So a substantial amount of material was hauled away from the rear yards, most of it junk. So all of it was done within about an hour and a half by A&J Landscaping. It all went well. Enclosed in your council packet are the specific dollar amounts that were associated with us doing the work. It included demolition, assistance from our police officers to be there present while the work was commencing, and then as well as Tim Burns, our zoning administrator's time to administer the abatement. Those costs totaled $1,872.03. And we would request by our code, to follow our code, section 132907D, that all of those expenses be filed as a lien against the property moving forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hanson?
I did not look at section 1329 to check this, but does that also allow for us to charge interest on the lien?
It doesn't discuss interest. In this particular case, those costs I did not charge interest with. For me, the abatement part of it is getting rid of the nuisance. So I was perfectly comfortable, just taking care of the cost that we had in it up front. You certainly could add an interest factor to it before we file it. If that's something that council's purview wants to take a look at, we certainly could. Just wasn't something I was really strong to do one way or the other. I just want to make sure our labor time and our invoice to AJ was covered.
And I asked because there's a chance that the lien just sits for 20 years,
Absolutely could.
Joe, what sort of interaction have we had with the owner on it?
Labored extremely, as you can imagine. When you get to this point, severe disagreements on what's junk, what I mean? So she came in, she wanted to do a payment plan on the lien itself. Was not in favor of that. She was offered the ability to take advantage of our unlimited pickup. The zoning administrator was ready to move forward quickly. I pushed pause on it. I said, you've got the ability to take all of this to the curb. We will take every shredded ounce of it. All you got to do is get manpower there to bring it to the curb. We gave her the opportunity to do that. She didn't take any of it. So for me, this was a long-standing thing that was just going to continue to move on. This particular
Elderly woman?
she is. She has a son that lives with her too. The son is the one who has been accumulating the stuff.
Just for clarification, when you said she offered to do a payment plan, are you saying that was after the window, or we just don't do payment plans, or?
She wanted to come in and set up a payment plan for the lien itself. That was not something at this point that I was willing to negotiate to.
Got it. But you didn't want to do a payment plan for just the fee, the cost?
Mm-mm. I would rather just lien it. I suspect in my dealings with the individual that she'll make one payment and then I'll be stuck trying to go after the second and the third and the fourth with the way that the cooperation has been.
Okay.
I know it sounds harsh, I know, but it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle.
There's a time factor attached to
Yep.
the labor. to pursue that. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance 93, 2026 for consideration. Mr. Haynem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move adoption of ordinance number 93-2026. I'll read by title only. Levying a special assessment for the abatement of a public nuisance located at 5845 Balfour Road in the city of Sylvania, Ohio, in the amount of $1,872.03. And I move adoption of ordinance number 93-2026 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 93, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance 93, 2026 is adopted as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item number 7, we have some right-of-way acquisitions for our upcoming project in 2027 in Erie and Monroe. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are up to parcels 7 and 8 being acquired, with 2 remaining to go after these 2. I would call these 2 of the 4 very significant right-of-way acquisitions to secure with the project. Parcel 7 is the first one that is on the south side of the intersection of Erie and Monroe. We were taking, on average, about a 17.5-foot strip from the frontage of the property, full width. In addition, they had a horseshoe driveway, which was being reduced down to 1 due to the location of the splitter island for the roundabout that was there. So a significant impact. This one included a warranty deed as well as a temporary easement. Had good discussions with the owner throughout with what their driveway was going to look like and how it was going to function in the after. But ultimately we came to an agreement for the 0.056 acres of land, including 1 tree, 2 shrubs, and the driveway removal, just aforementioned noted. So $43,200 was the agreed upon price for that. That includes the permanent right-of-way and temporary construction easement. This was a known expense in our capital improvement budget, and we would recommend approval with the acquisition for John M. Dunnigan and Teresa M. Dunnigan. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance 94, 2026 for consideration. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 94, 2026. I will read by title only. Accepting a temporary construction easement and authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a purchase agreement for 0.056 acre of real property from John M. Dunnigan and Teresa M. Dunnigan for the roundabout at the intersection of Erie Street and Monroe Street, and resurfacing work on Erie Street from Centennial Road to Monroe Street, dedicating the temporary easement and the real property purchase for public purposes, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $43,200. I make a motion for passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 94, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance 94, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 7C, parcel 18, I think this is Mr. Shaw.
Parcel 18, yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is kind of the same situation. On this particular property, the right-of-way buried, it wasn't really a uniform strip as the other one. To give you an idea where this property is located, it's at the intersection of Erie and Monroe, and then count 2 houses to the east of San Reno. That's this particular property that we've been working with here. So the same thing with this one. He had a horseshoe driveway that was being reduced down to 1 because of the roundabout splitter, which is an ingress egress issue that we had to work through with him. He also had some grading things. His house sits up a little bit higher than the roadway profile, so this one required a larger temporary construction easement to do some of the feathering in and the grading work needed for the drive. We did come to an agreement with Mr. Brian May in the amount of $53,500 for 0.039 acres of land. You may ask why this one is a little bit more for less land. There's a lot of other valuations that go into the appraisal processes for different surface features and different things that get counted for cost. This one had a little bit more sensitivity to it, so that's the reason for the increased cost. So $53,500 is the ask tonight for both the permanent right-of-way and the temporary construction easement. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance 95, 2026 for consideration. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will introduce ordinance number 95, 2026 by title only. Accepting a temporary construction easement and authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a purchase agreement for .039 acre of real property from Brian T. May for the roundabout at the intersection of Erie Street and Monroe Street, and resurfacing work on Erie Street from Centennial Road to Monroe Street, dedicating the temporary easement and the real property purchase for public purposes, authorizing funds therefore in the amount of $53,500. I move for passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 95, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance 95, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to a Parks and Forestry vehicle purchase potentially. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Discussed at length in a committee meeting last year and another one this year with our Parks and Forestry group about moving forward with our green yard waste collection program and the vehicle used to service that route. We've done the due diligence on this one. This was the vehicle that was presented in the options a couple months ago at our committee meeting. And so we'd like to move forward with the purchase of a new truck, which is a McNeilius M5 rear loader. This one has 11 cubic yards of capacity in the amount of $192,145. And this one would come from McQueen Equipment Company. They're out of Lake Orion, Michigan. This particular vehicle is a lot smaller than what we used in the past. We used a 22-yard loader. And in learning about the operation and understanding all the ins and outs of how it works, we never even really compacted the material that was in the 22-yard one. So by using a smaller vehicle and compacting it and maybe dumping once a day, we still feel like we can offer a great service for a smaller vehicle using better efficiencies for the amount of green yard waste that we actually collect in the program. So that's the reason for the purchase. Be happy to answer questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
This is, we're gonna use any kind of container for holding this, right? We're not gonna,
This has a rear toter, a grabber feature on it. So if
It
somebody
does.
wants to put a toter out there, it's something we can take.
are we going to offer toters for sale, or how would we do that?
Homeowners can purchase a toter if they'd like to. They can go to Home Depot, Lowe's. We probably can give them some pointers and guidance on ones that would
Are
work
there,
well.
yeah, are there size considerations and so forth that,
Yeah, similar, we wouldn't want to see anything as big. Our refuse and recycling program that we have is, I believe, a 96-gallon toter.
Yeah.
We certainly wouldn't want to see anything larger than that.
okay. But that type of toter would
Yeah.
be,
Absolutely.
or, and we also have smaller toters too, don't we?
You can use a smaller toter. Yeah, you can
But
use
we, I mean, our garbage pickup, we have smaller, how big is the smaller toter? I don't remember.
Michelle may even know that. 65. Yeah.
Okay, so it's about two
Two-thirds.
thirds. Yeah, okay. All
We
right.
don't have many of those. Most people have the larger one.
So will we be communicating this somehow
Sure.
to our?
It's a soft rollout. I mean, if we roll out this new truck in the very first day and we operate under the same premise that we do right now, no big deal. I think we can message to the public that we can now offer toters. And so did you want to put a toter at the curb? It's something we can collect.
I'd love to get rid of that garbage can.
You can do it.
I think the homeowner where I live would be most interested in the toter.
Lead time.
They actually have 4 of these available up in Lake Orion. So we actually just had communication yesterday, today on this, about make sure one of those was held just for us. So we should be able to get this within the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. They have to outfit the toter thing on it, which won't take too long, but I would say we might have the truck by end of summer.
This is the two-man operation. right?
This is the 2-man
Yeah,
operation.
that's right. Just making sure.
Yep.
Yep, that's right.
Any other questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance 96, 2026 for consideration. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce By title only, ordinance number 96, 2026, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of McQueen Equipment Company for the provision of a new McNeelius M5 rear loader with 11 cubic yards of material capacity for the Department of Public Service, Division of Parks and Forestry, appropriating $192,145. Therefore, I move for passage of ordinance number 96, 2026 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 96, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Ordinance 96, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item number 9. Mr. Shaw, some obsolete equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pretty simple one on this. We bought a Mini X, including a new trailer to haul it around. It has been delivered and in service. We can dispose of the old trailer, which I love bringing pieces of equipment that start with a 1 to you guys. So this one is 1997. This one is ready to be moved to Gov Deals.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw? Any interest in the 1997 Interstate trailer?
It was 1998 maybe, but
Missed it by 1 year.
Yeah.
Doggone. Good enough. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we provide approval to dispose of a 1997 Interstate trailer by posting it for sale on Gov Deals website.
Second.
A motion and a second to authorize the administration to post the 1997 Interstate trailer on Gov Deals for sale. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We're getting ready to consider an executive session for some security arrangement conversations, which is, as far as I'm, is now permitted under revised code. But prior to that, I wanted to mention the information item A. We received a letter, the administration received this letter from the committee for the consideration of resolution 5, 2026. It was passed at the last meeting rejecting the initiative petition. So the next step in this process, as I understand it from Ms. Brining, is that at the next council meeting, the administration is going to put a legislation on authorizing the placing of this item on the ballot for the November election. So, and that's not a may, that's a shall, is my understanding of the language in the charter. So just wanted to let you know this is the next step in the process, and then the step after that will be considered in a few weeks. So any questions about that? Hearing none, we have a potential executive session to move into committee of the whole executive session for the purpose of discussing specialized security arrangements for the city. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Hanem,
Yes.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
All 7 members have voted to enter into a committee of the whole executive session for the purposes of discussing specialized security arrangements. You're welcome to stick around, but obviously you need to exit now. We may have some legislation on the agenda. Okay.
hard to.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to exit Committee of the Whole Executive Session?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to exit Committee of the Whole Executive Session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Mayhem,
Yes.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Dow,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
All 7 members of City Council voted in the affirmative, therefore we've exited executive session. No discussions were held, but no decisions were made in regards to specialized security arrangements. So we do have one item that comes before us now is ordinance number 97, 2026 for consideration as a result of the executive session. Mrs. Westfall, will you do the honors here?
Thank you.
No, hold on. Is it okay if I do Ms. Dow since this is a building?
Absolutely.
Ms. Dow, would you do the honors?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce ordinance number 97-2026 and read by title only. Accepting the proposal of the collaborative for the Craig A. Stowe Municipal Building Security Improvements, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $21,000. I move for passage of ordinance number 97-2026 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 97, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance 97, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Do I have any other committee reports this evening? Or any committee referrals? Hearing none, we have no other business to come before us this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and we are adjourned until our next meeting 2 weeks hence on Monday, June the 15th. Thank you very much. And I'll be here in the council chambers at 6:30. Appreciate you attending.